Hi everybody, Miss Martell here. So I'm going to talk about how to write out intervals for increasing and decreasing from a graph. So if we're looking at a graph that looks something like this, and we're asked to find where the function is increasing, I highly suggest that the first thing you do is kind of highlight, or at least like key in, look at like the actual place where it's increasing. And remember, if it's increasing, if you were to think about like drawing a little person or something on your graph, if you drew them at the like left-hand side, you would want to be looking to see like where he's going uphill. So like if he was to start here where my cursor is, really it looks right now like he's going downhill, downhill, uphill, and then downhill again. So we want for increasing the uphill interval. So that should be this one. And again, those other ones that are downhill, keep in mind those would be like negative slopes, whereas this one would be positive slopes. So technically what you're looking for is here would be where the y values are decreasing, they'd be getting smaller. Like here the y value is 8, here it's 7, then 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, etc. They're going down, but then here the y values are going up. We have -2, then we have -1, then 0, then 1, then 2, 3, 4. So the y values are going up, and then here again the y value would go down from 4 to 3. So the reason that you know if it's increasing or decreasing, it happens because of the y values, but when we actually list out the interval, you only list the x values for increasing and decreasing. So even though the fact that it's increasing or decreasing, that comes from the y's, you only list the x's when you go to do the interval. And that's something that a lot of people kind of mix up. It has to be the x values when you actually list the interval. And we go smallest to biggest just because it's interval notation, so we always go smallest to biggest, and we have to keep in mind if we're going to have brackets or parentheses. So what we're going to want to look at when we go to write this is we start increasing at 1, -2. And again, we only list the x value. So the x value here would be 1, and then we'd be going all the way until 5. Now, keep in mind we only use the brackets if we have endpoints. So our endpoints would be at -8 and would be and the other one would be at +8. So we're not going to be using brackets, we're just going to have parentheses on those. The other way that you can think about it too is here, here at the x value of the x value of 1, that's where it changes from decreasing to increasing. So you're going to need to put the parentheses because that's like the switching point. That's the place where it changes from decreasing to increasing. And then if you're looking at that x value of 5, that's the place where it changes from increasing to decreasing. So again, that's like a switching point. It changes, so then you're just having the parentheses with those. So your increasing interval should be from 1 to 5, not including 1 and not including 5. Then when we go to write out decreasing, I always kind of would suggest first thing that you're going to do is kind of highlight, look to see where are you decreasing. You might even notice when I went to highlight it on these, the blue and the yellow kind of like overlapped because that's where we're switching from decreasing to increasing. So kind of mentioning that again, and that kind of keys me in, reminds you, oh, hey, those are the points that I'm going to have to put the parentheses on, which is something that's kind of nice if you decide to use a highlighter for this, because then you might be reminded, hey, those are going to be the places where I definitely need to put parentheses instead of brackets. And then notice too that this first little section on here, it's decreasing. It has a different slope than the second section, but they both still would be going downhill. They both still have negative slopes. So you can really write that as one interval. The first point here, it's -8. Remember, you list the x value. So you start with the -8, and then it's decreasing all the way here until here, which is at 1, -2. People are so tempted to put a -2 here instead of a 1. You can't do that, though, because -2 is the y value, and you only list the x value. So you're putting as your first section of the interval, it should be -8 to 1. And then we had the increasing parts. We don't need that right now. And then it started decreasing again here at the ordered pair 5, 4, but again, you're listing the x value. So then you have to put the 5, and then it decreases all the way until 8. So then you're going to have the bracket with the 8 because that's the end point. Notice it's only in your decreasing color, the blue that I used. And kind of the same thing with the -8. It's an end point, so you have to have the bracket with the -8 also. But the 1 and the 5 were the places where we switched from here, from decreasing to increasing, and then here from increasing to decreasing. So then with the 1 and the 5, you use the parentheses. And notice that if I use the 1 here with the parentheses, it should match that this one would also have a parenthesis. And here we have the parentheses with the 5. It should match that then this 5 also has a parenthesis on there. And I was just going to mention too, say that, you know, this little part here, had it kept going and you had an arrow on the end, then for your decreasing interval, you would have had 5 to infinity if you had changed it to have an arrow on the end. And had you had an arrow up here, you would have actually gone on your decreasing integral starting, instead of at -8, you would head from negative infinity. So just a couple things that would have changed it. The increasing would have stayed the same if you had put arrows on both ends. Hope that was helpful. Thanks for listening.